Yeah, we'll rotate this and zoom in a sec. I just wanted to show the whole total composition. Like if I showed one image to explain where we are, this kind of one image sums up the whole thing. Oh, thank you to the person who made the unusual PayPal donation. I think we both know it's more generous than I deserve. Okay, so this can deal with the concept of the found family, which I see in comics. And in films, but it's treated differently in films because films you're talking about $100 million, not I don't know whatever comics cost, like several orders of magnitude less. Okay, so there are. My point is that in films you've got to recoup your investment. You can't afford to throw away $100 million. Where a comic you can afford to throw away $30,000 on propaganda. Anyway, so there are a few cliches in SGW comics. The B cups, the mom haircut, the mom bod, the purse puppies, all antagonists are going to be blonde. SJW comics, they forced swearing. They feel inauthentic because they're not anything close to telling classic stories. They go in with the idea of telling some bullshit propaganda. It's like that's on the whiteboard. That's the center of the spider web, is their propaganda points, and then the story spreads out from there, as opposed to just getting into it, telling a classic story. Classic stories are thousands of years old. They feel authentic, at least within the story universe, even if they're not actually believable. We like the story of the boy goes off on an adventure to rescue the girl and battle dragons. Along the way, you get adventure and romance, problem solving, and humor. We know dragons don't exist. Probably. It doesn't matter. It just represents a challenge. He's got to demonstrate his bravery and cleverness. There's a book by Piers Anthony that was probably written about 40, 50 years ago. I forget the name of it now. I think it was number 7 in the series, where the little kid goes off to do that. Except the dragon is the good guy. They go off solving problems. He meets the princess. It's a little bit different because him and the princess are solving problems together, but they do develop a romance together. So it's kind of a more modern take. Modern being like 1970s, 1980s, at least compared to several thousand years ago. In the classic stories, the women didn't used to be involved in the more active role for the simple reasons of biology. Young women are biologically more valuable to the tribe. They don't want to risk their eggs. What we have now are commies, or I should probably switch this. Cultural Marxists who are putting women in these roles of men. Oh, and for some reason that phrase cultural Marxists in the Frankfurt School, that really seems to trigger them. So does alt-left. That was a thing on Twitter a few years ago. They put these women in the roles of men, which is why the story feels so silly. Very few women want to go off and battle the dragon. Most girls don't want to be Ms. Marvel or Batgirl to go fight the bad guys. They want to look cute, drink tea, and talk about romance. What do you think Lifetime and Harlequin books do so well? And if you can write at all, and you enjoy writing, you enjoy a little romance, you can get yourself on Amazon and write serial romances. And if you can write, you can probably make a pretty penny. I've actually given it some thought because I can write a little bit, and I do like romance. I mean, not the sappy romance, but like I figured maybe I could tell an improved romantic story still for women, but just a little bit more improved. I don't know. Anyway, so the Ms. Marvel part is just a costume that brings attention to them so they can look adorable. But what the cultural Marxists are doing now is backwards. They aren't taking human experience and letting a story evolve from it organically, which is what humans have done for tens of thousands of years. Yes, there are tall stories. Stories get exaggerated. Gods in the mountains throwing rocks at each other. Yeah, I thought of The Hobbit when I said that. Or stories of the hunt, the one that got away. But the stories still evolve organically. Women and men telling stories that arise from their experience or imagination, but it's from fantasies of things that they desire or they find humorous or whatever. The next step from these simple stories are parables. I can't pronounce that word for some reason. And it's like, a really great video is me going through a whole list of words I can't pronounce on video. And lessons, but they still arise from things that the tribe have learned. they don't want to reinvent the wheel, so they pass down these lessons to teach the young on how to avoid pitfalls. You know, things that ensure the success of the tribe, to ensure that their genes get passed down. Things like don't hunt bears, hunt deer. Now, stories aren't as lesson stories aren't as entertaining as pure adventure stories, but they impart a lesson and they make you think. But what the SJWs are doing now is putting the cart before the horse and expecting the cart to pull, except the cart won't pull. So what they end up doing is getting some guys to pull the cart while the horse walks along behind them and looks confused. To mix metaphors even further, modern pop culture is astroturf, not grassroots. They are very slowly dragging the cart by hand. They want to change society, I assume, so they tell stories of girl power, of women going on the hunt, while the men stay home and nurse the babies. Except you run into the biological firewall of you're telling stories that flash warning lights to humans. A fertile woman is a very precious commodity. For the simple reasons that one man can impregnate several women a night for years, but a woman can only get pregnant about once a year. And of course, men can't nurse babies, and men on average are a little bit stronger, a little bit faster, but that isn't actually that important to humans because they use intelligence. They're not using brute strength. It's that you don't want to risk a woman during her fertility window. SJWs are telling these stories of putting women in men's roles so the stories feel like you're dragging the story uphill. Another thing it does is destroy romance and the unit cohesion of the story's characters. If the women are doing everything that men used to do, then why do they need a man? If men and women are the same, then they can't be the key to each other's lock. The women in stories are just basically short, thin men. The stories are backwards because women don't dream of these adventure roles. First comes the dream, then the story evolves from it. But now they put the woke story together and hope that people jump on board the concept. So far, they haven't. I use comics as an example because the SJWs are doing most of the work for me. They are preparing their brave new world fantasies in a nicely drawn format. Another concept they push is diversity and the rejection of your blood family, clan, and nation for the replacement of a diverse group of people. We'll skip that part. It sort of reminds me of something kids do when they're in their rebellious phase. The media brainwashes them so much that they try the diversity experiment. Then they get burned and realize that there is a reason for tradition. Blood is thicker than water. You'll see Twitter SJWs talking about a diverse town, and then they mention the great restaurants, but that's it, because everything else sucks. I can only go so far on YouTube without getting kicked off, but you know what is up. And I've seen this theme of the diverse ragtag group fighting, let's get you in there, fighting their parents or their patriarchal stand-ins. It's a mixture of cringe and subversion. It's propaganda written by people with a dozen cats. Remember, there is a cat scale of mental illness. In fact, if you flip through comics with groups of kids, you'll notice the forced diversity and the portrayal of the parents and authority figures as evil. The Marxist propaganda is pretty strong, but they are also not subtle. You're going to see scenes that are just obviously anti-Christian, anti-blonde. I remember one scene where a blonde girl is yelling at her father, and she runs off with her diverse, newfound family. Welcome to single motherhood. The message is reject your blood family. Join the new diverse one. It's pretty insidious because the comics with the kids are aimed at a young audience. The white pill is that so few people are reading them. It's refreshing to hear kids calling each other gamer words and rejecting propaganda. The ultimate act of rebellion is to reject CNN, Biden, the mainstream media, and social media. Whatever diverse cancer they are pushing is to destroy you. In comics, the good guys are diverse. The bad guys are Europeans. Even in comics set in fantasy worlds, why are the antagonists blonde and blue-eyed? Most of the planet has black hair and black eyes. The rebuttal might be that they're selling to an American audience, but that doesn't explain why the bad guys are blue-eyed. Shouldn't the good guys be fair and blonde and the bad guys dark? Oh, but that'd be phobic. But isn't it phobic to make the Europeans evil 95% of the time and never the dark characters? Yes, of course it is. Don't be afraid to call out anti-Euro hatred. If the good guys are mixed, then the bad guys must be mixed. That is a simple rule of thumb. It's called being fair. If the comic shows an anti-Euro bias, the writers and editors are racists. Call them out on social media. Ask them, hey, credit to Nasser, right? Ask them to explain their hatred. They'll block you, but other people will see your message and wonder why Marvel and DC are racist. The thing is, these comics don't take much scrutiny. How many examples of anti-white hatred do the normie magatards need to see before they realize that the people who control films, comics, mainstream media hate you and want to see you gone from this mortal coil? I could do comics like this daily. Seriously, I would never run out of material, but eventually YouTube would catch on and nuke the channel, which I can't believe I'm on this long anyway. Nothing is allowed to go against the narrative. I'm a little surprised to see increasing resistance to this anti-white hatred on Twitter. People are slowly being red-pilled. Then they get kicked off and go to Parler and Gab, where we start clown-pilling them. People drop red pills on Twitter like Johnny Appleseed. On Gab, we use B-52s. Watching MAGA normies come to a free speech platform, and then they get a little taken back when they find free speech. Oh, and another thing I almost forgot about the white man bad comics is that when they know that they've overused the blonde or fair-haired trope, they will shave the heads of the bad guys. They also use this trick in Birds of Prey. Of course, you won't see black or Mexican gangs in comics. They simply don't exist. It's a weird world they live in. I really wish I could go there. Think back to the classic cheeseball film, The Goonies. It was still a ragtag group of diverse kids, but the message wasn't anti-family, it was pro-family. The kids were trying to save their town. When you compare it to what you see now in comics, it's shocking. It's the same people, but they've taken their masks off. They were always globalists. Now it's finally safe for them to come out of the shadows. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for the donations on Coffee and PayPal and all that kind of stuff. Go to Odysee and BitChute. On Odysee, you can give crypto coins. Like, you can give, a couple of pennies to the people who make videos. And it's a whole lot easier to give a couple of pennies than to give, like a $2 super chat or something.